He was asking about the, for those of you who couldn't hear, he's asking about the tough decisions that the governor had to make about the public education system when she was governor. You guys know we had the recession and, well, we had no money. So.
Yeah. In our state, the governor, and I'm assuming we're going to talk about furloughs, and my opponent is going to bring this up, but she's just not familiar with state law. Under the law, no governor can order furloughs. You can't. It's just against the law. Just like no governor can order the judiciary to have furloughs. That's up to the separate branch of government. Because the Department of Education is a separately elected board at that time, they're separate under the law. But what I did have to do was reduce the amount of funding going to the Department of Education by $220 million. And it's a big amount of money, but because the Department of Education is the largest department in the state, taking $2 billion of the $5 billion general fund budget, obviously some of it had to come from there. So it was a substantial amount. How they were going to cover that was up to them. They could have consolidated classrooms, they could have done other things. They made the decision to furlough the teachers. I spoke to them about it. I said, if you're going to do this, it should not be on instructional days. They have planning days, they have other holidays, they have all kinds of days. Do it on non-instructional days. Instead, they went out on instructional days, they took a vote of their membership, they got an 81% approval from the teachers to use instructional days. Now, my mistake, if you will, was believing them when they said, yes, we're going to minimize the impact on the instructional days. I suppose I should have been more skeptical. They chose those days because it would have the biggest impact on families and on students and on child care. They chose Friday because it would have the biggest impact on extracurricular activities. They could have done it, even if they chose to do it on an instructional day, they could have done it on a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, or a Thursday. They picked Friday because that's when the sporting events take place. This would just have the biggest impact, and they would be able to get the money that they wanted. And they were smart, and they succeeded. And I got the legislature back in, and we got some emergency appropriation. I got the banks here in the state to come up with an additional $10 million if we needed it to cover those days. But it was a really poor decision, I think, on their part to do that. But on the other side, I would tell you that at the end of that 2010 school year, scores went up in the state of Hawaii in both reading and math for the furlough year. I mean, I think that's an important fact. The other important fact is those furloughs led to what all of us governors could never get done on our own. From Governor Burns, through Governor Ariyoshi, through Governor Waihee, through Governor Cartano and myself, we all wanted the governor to be able to appoint the Board of Education. We could never get it through, none of us. But because of the furloughs, the public started to pay more attention. The governors, every living governor came together. We did ads together. I was in office, and they all came up to the office there, and we took photographs together to do these ads that this public group had purchased. Because, again, I was a Republican, they were Democrats, but we all believed there was a lack of accountability, that the way the Board of Education was being elected previously, it meant that the labor unions were having an outsized impact on our education system. Because in those Department of Education's elections, only 13% of the people in the state voted in the Department of Education race. When there are so few people voting between the HSTA, HGA, UPW, they were controlling, especially the HSTA. So those Board of Education members saw themselves as answering to them and not to the broad public. So was there any good that came out of it? I think there really was good that came out of it, because now we have an appointed group of leaders here in our state who we know who they are. The governor picked them all, so if they're not operating correctly, and most people think they are, but if they're not, you know the governor is the one who put them there. So we got something good out of it as well.